Hello and welcome to the Lenovo Legion 7 2021 review. The model we have in front of us is a top spec model. It has the Ryzen 9 5900X processor, the RTX 3080, the 32GB RAM. It's a top model you can buy, and in the UK it retails for $2,399. There's a few things that I wanted to quickly go over with this laptop. Now, this laptop is one that I'd kept my eyes on for a very long time. I was literally hitting refresh on their website on a daily basis, trying to get hold of this. It's pretty much the only way you can get hold of an RTX 3080 these days. It's the first laptop I've had with the ports on the back, which I was, in my mind, always worked better. This has been my daily driver. It's the 13-inch MacBook Pro. I've always been with Apple, but mainly because work has always just given me Apple laptops. This doesn't even actually belong to me, but I'll be kind of like doing a comparison between the two in terms of build quality, especially considering that this costs $899. This particular model is the bottom of the range model, and this costs over twice as much. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to make this review is because I saw a lot of reviews from a lot of other YouTubers, and it's a little bit difficult with early product reviews because a lot of these YouTubers are given the products to review, and when that happens, they tend to really leave out a lot of the negative stuff. When I bought an Acer laptop a couple of years back, I noticed this because I bought the Acer laptop and I was shocked at just how much of the information was left off from all the big YouTubers' reviews. This is a unit that I purchased myself, so I'm happy to point out a lot of stuff that I feel like has been left out on YouTube, which is kind of why I'm reviewing this. I wasn't really going to do a review of this laptop, but let's dive into it. In terms of build quality, the build quality is better on the MacBook Pro. Like if you take a listen here, this is built very solid unit, this. There is flex in the chassis. In terms of fingerprints, well, you can have a look here. I've been using this for a couple of days. Even though it's a beautiful gunmetal finish, it does have fingerprints. And if you push it with one finger, it's not the best of build qualities I've seen because it clearly flexes down. Now, I unfortunately was going to return this unit. The trackpad you're meant to be able to click on anywhere. Now I can click on here, but at the top, it takes a lot of force to click. Now I assume this was because I had a faulty unit. And if you listen here, there's a big rattle. That's not me actually pressing the button. The bottom left clearly has a rattle. A top quality glass trackpad, like the one on the MacBook Pro, there's no rattle at all. Also, a lot of YouTube reviewers seem to say that the chassis was very strong. Now, if I push down, you can see it does create a space between, there is clearly a space there, which a lot of, again, reviewers really failed to mention. Again, I'm not somebody who's had a lot of Windows laptops, but this to me, I mean, it's a lot of give there, it's a lot of flex. In everyday usage, you're not going to notice it, but even if you just push down here, I'm not pushing down hard, and you can see this flexing here. So these are just things that they shouldn't put you off the laptop, but I feel like a lot of YouTubers weren't overly honest about that. They also weren't overly honest about getting inside of this thing. Now, getting inside of this laptop, you need to remove the screws. Credit to Lenovo if you're using Phillips head screws that you can remove pretty easily, but I needed to use a pick to go across the sides to undo the little notches underneath that click. There's these plastic notches that click together underneath this. I use a plastic pick that came with my iFixit kit, and it broke the plastic pick, so you do need a metal pick or something stronger than just a plastic pick. Now, I do truly love how a lot of the ports are in the back. There are USB-C ports, but they're on either side of it. The only thing that happened is I plugged in a PlayStation controller in the back, and I had this thing on my lap. And obviously when you put stuff on your lap, if you pull the screen forward a little bit and it's balanced on your lap, it's going to do that a little bit. And it was and that was putting pressure on the cable against my leg, so be careful with that. Otherwise, in terms of the laptop itself, my laptop had minimal background bleeding, which was really good. The keyboard itself, I don't love. It feels a bit mushy for me, but again, it's personal preference. I also, if it was up to me, wouldn't have had this here, would have just had this centralized, because I mainly type here, and which means both my hands are kind of like off to the side a little bit. But I must say the palm rejection on this is great. I also noticed on my particular laptop that there was a little bit of a bend to the RGB light here, which kind of protruded out a bit. I've managed to push it back in with my thumb and balance it out, but it wasn't totally level. Again, you know, the issues I've had with the trackpad, the issues I've had with, you know, the little RGB light, the case is a little bit more plasticky than the YouTubers lead you to believe. Let's take a look at this. It bends pretty easily. I mean, I'm hardly putting any pressure on this at all. And in terms of this, I mean, again, hardly any pressure at all. And I don't know if it's just me, whether I've just been used to, with Apple laptops, for example, I'm putting as much force as I can here, there's zero give. If I did this with my thumb, my middle finger, I literally feel like I could snap this thing without much of a problem. You know, these are things that I think you need to be aware of, especially if you're coming from Apple, that the build quality isn't as good as it's been made out to be. There are issues with the trackpad. This is my second unit that I've had this issue with. There is quite a lot of flex in the chassis. And this is another issue that it brings me up to, and that's that I called Lenovo. So the way they propose to fix this is I send this laptop back to them. I wait 7 to 10 days to receive my label to post it back. Once I've posted it back to them, then within 14 days, they will let me know if they have a replacement. If they have a replacement, they will then send that out within 7 days. So essentially, it'll be a month before I get another one of these. I would just order another one and return this, but they don't have any more on their website. So it just seems I'm either gonna have to return this or just make do with the extremely, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who taps the trackpad, and that's gonna drive me insane over time. And especially given the price of this thing is over £2,000 in the UK, it just feels like a shortcut that you shouldn't have to take when you're spending this kind of money. Now, saying all this, I will say one thing. In terms of performance, when plugged in, this laptop blew me away. I could play any game I threw at this on ultra settings without the slightest bit of slowdown. You do lose a little bit of power when you unplug it. However, if you're going to play this gaming, you know, AAA titles, I strongly recommend that you use a electricity cable. But saying that, the fans were not as loud as I expected them to be, which is great. They do have this annoying whiny pitch to them. That annoying pitch is not the worst, but it's also not overly great. Now, this was 100% when I started recording, and I've been recording for 10 minutes. And as you can see, it's dropped down to 88%. And a big part of this is a piece of software. And this piece of software is the IQ software from Corsair. Unfortunately, this seems to drastically drain your battery. On one hand, I'd say great that Lenovo have acknowledged this, and hopefully they'll fix it. But on the other hand, this same issue was on the previous generation of the Lenovo Legion, and they never got around to fixing it. Now, you can turn off these lights if you're going to a meeting, which is good. You can also turn off this little Y logo back here. So you can turn off pretty much all the lights, which is great. Talking about the lights, one of the weird thing is if you click on white, now I don't know if the camera can see this, this isn't actually white. This is kind of like baby blue. It's not white, it just can't seem to reproduce white very well on the keyboard for some reason. And the software isn't the most intuitive one. I've had to actually look at a tutorial. So to sum up, I do really love this laptop. It is bigger than I thought it would be. It's heavier than I thought it would be. But this screen is absolutely fantastic. Editing on this 16-inch screen is a dream. It's great. Like, even playing video games on it, it's great. I don't feel, you know, before this I had the Zephyrus G14 for a while, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on connecting it to a big screen. It's great, but where does this leave me personally? Customer service is a big worry for me. Now, don't get me wrong, even with my Apple laptops, I've had an issue. 6 months into owning this laptop, it had a complete motherboard failure, needed to be replaced, lost all my work. So that's not unheard of. You know, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I feel a lot more confident when I speak to Apple than when I call Lenovo and it's someone in their bedroom speaking to me with kids and dogs barking in the background and kids shouting and screaming and not being able to hear a word of what they say. And then when I call back, they're essentially saying to me, it could be a month before I get a replacement. So the only option they really gave me was to get this extended service where they come to your house and then wait until that service is up and running and then get them to come and change the trackpad. Alternatively, I could go on their website and just pray that within the first 28 days they get more stock, even though the guy on the phone sounded like that wasn't really going to be too likely. Overall, I'm very pleased with it. I mean, the weight is insanely heavy compared to what I thought it was. And let me tell you something, the power brick, I'd heard how big it was. It's huge, but you know, it needs that power. You can plug in the charger from the MacBook Pro, but it gives you a warning on screen that it's not going to be able to have sufficient charge. I do love the fact that you can disable this camera by just flicking the switch down here. It physically disconnects the camera from the board. When you plug in into the back, the ports light up, which is great. Another big thing as well is the HDMI port is HDMI 2.1. So if connecting to an external display, so you get 4K at 120 Hertz. So what am I going to do? I'm going to keep this. I'm going to try and get hold of another unit because the display is absolutely stunning. It has no problem playing even the latest AAA titles in ultra settings, and also for video editing when using DaVinci Resolve and 4K footage. It's been a dream.